Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. It's Lane here with MetaShackle. Today I'm going to be going over something that most serious crypto hodlers already know, but the average crypto holder most likely doesn't know. Now when it comes to wallet safety, all of us know that the last thing we would ever want to do is leave our seed phrase laying somewhere where someone could find it and basically steal your crypto. Most people also know that you do not want to store your seed phrases on any device digitally, like, for example, through an email or through a file on your computer or perhaps your phone. Because if your computer or your email is ever hacked, you would basically be handing the keys to the kingdom right to these hackers. Now, people have various ways of storing their seed phrases, anything from writing it down, stashing it somewhere, to even going as far as stamping it into steel, which I will be doing a video on in the next couple of weeks, going over what I think is one of the best crypto steel wallets that you can make yourself. So keep your eyes out for that video in the future. But I think at this point, most crypto investors realize that you cannot trust the exchanges, as they have no problem ripping you off, and if they do, there is very little recourse. So most serious crypto investors utilize some form of a cold storage wallet, storing their crypto offline and air-gapping it from the internet. But very few people who use cold wallets use what is called a passphrase, which is essentially adding a 25th word to the 12 or 24 word seed phrase that you already have for your cold storage device. But people are not aware of how much security this adds to the cold storage wallet if it's done properly. And another thing that I have noticed is when you look on the wallet providers' websites, even though they talk about using passphrases, they always talk about them in a negative fashion, which I believe scares a lot of people and keeps them from actually utilizing the most powerful security tool that they have for their crypto hardware wallets. So I'm going to be going over some things just to show you and to demonstrate how much security using a properly written passphrase can add to your hardware wallet, because it is a lot safer than just using your seed phrase alone. So let's not waste any more time and let's get into the video. For additional information and exclusive perks, do consider joining me and the rest of our community on Patreon. Now here's an example of what I was just talking about. This is on Tangent's website, and it says, what is a passphrase? A passphrase is an extra word added to an existing seed phrase to create a new wallet. It differs from the 12 to 24 word seed phrase and is supported by many wallets using the BIP39 standard. Most experts would tell you that having a passphrase provides an additional layer of security. Still, there are major drawbacks to this feature. You see what I mean? Think of it as a string of ASCII characters, uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters that you can add to your seed phrase. Your seed phrase alone is technically a key to a valid wallet with an empty passphrase. However, adding a passphrase creates a new and distinct wallet on top of your existing seed. As a result, you can have one single recovery phrase with multiple passphrases to create multiple crypto wallets. Each passphrase leads to a unique wallet. Now you can see right here how they're already talking bad on it, as there is major drawbacks on this feature. And coming down here, it will get into it even further, but the way that they word this is not accurate. Now listen how they write this. It says, where should I store my passphrase? Your passphrase must be stored separately from your seed phrase. If you keep both in the same place, you're eliminating the purpose of having a passphrase. You can store your passphrase digitally, such as in an encrypted file or using a secure password manager, as long as your seed is stored physically. That's a bad idea. I think it's interesting that they're talking down on passphrases, but they think that storing your passphrase digitally is a good idea somehow. It's ridiculous. Please note that adding a passphrase to your security measures can also increase the amount of responsibility and the potential for errors. With the passphrase, you'll be managing another critical piece of information. Losing or forgetting your passphrase could result in being unable to access your funds. Passphrases are case sensitive, meaning that capital and lowercase letters are recognized differently, and even a space character is considered a distinct character. Coming down here a little bit lower, it says, if you enter an incorrect passphrase, your wallet will not produce an error message, but will create a new and empty wallet. We don't recommend using a passphrase because one little error can lead to disaster. Excessive security can be just as risky as insufficient security. Now that is correct, but I find it very disingenuous that they make it sound like you're somehow going to lose your crypto if you enter in the wrong passphrase. All you'd be doing was creating another wallet on top of your existing seed. Once you have created a passphrase and a wallet address, that wallet address always exists as long as you have your seed phrase and your passphrase. But it adds an incredible extra layer of security. Now, reading things like this coming from the wallet manufacturers leads me to one conclusion, that for some reason they don't want you to use a passphrase, which I find very suspicious, and mainly for the reason that by creating a passphrase, you would be putting it outside of their control. Now, just having a 24-word seed phrase is already incredibly strong, incredibly safe. But if you listen to people on YouTube like Crypto Hulk, and there's a few other ones that talk about quantum attacks potentially hacking cold storage devices in the future, which I think very well could be possible at some point, the first wallets that are going to get hacked are going to be the ones that don't have passphrases. Because as I'm about to demonstrate, people who have the right passphrase on their device are adding such an incredible extra layer of security to their device that not even every quantum computer on this planet working in tandem to try and crack it could do it within your lifetime. It is incredible how much security it adds. So now let's take a look at it and I will show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I had a little conversation with ChatGPT here because the math involved in this is absolutely extraordinary. But I asked Chat, if you have a 24-word seed phrase and use a passphrase that consists of 40 characters that are a combination of numbers, letters, symbols, and spaces, how much safer is the wallet with the passphrase on a percentage basis compared to just the 24-word seed phrase? Let's say the seed phrase alone is 100%, and the additional security this passphrase adds would be in addition to that. Chat says, great question. You're really drilling in to how much extra wall the 40-character passphrase builds on top of the 24-word seed phrase. Let's break it down in simple terms. So basically it says here in answer number 1, a 24-word seed phrase has 256 bits of entropy, which is about 1.16 times 10 to the 77th power possible combinations. This is already astronomically strong. Brute forcing it is not realistic, even with all the computing power on Earth. So now we'll skip down to the answer. So it says that's not just a few percent stronger, it's exponentially stronger. To put it into perspective, the passphrase doesn't make it 200% or 500% stronger. It makes it stronger by a factor of about 1.2 times 10 to the 79th power times more powerful. In percentage terms, it's so massive that it's essentially infinite compared to the 100%, which is referring to just the 24-word seed phrase alone. Bottom line, your 40-character passphrase more than doubles the effective security of your wallet. It squares it and then some. In practical terms, a 24-word seed phrase is already uncrackable, but adding your passphrase makes it uncrackable beyond imagination. Now we come down here. It says, here's a clean analogy you can use. And after some theoretical nonsense, it says, the passphrase doesn't just make it twice as strong, it makes it ridiculously stronger. The difference is so extreme that compared to just the seed phrase, it's like the number of grains of sand on Earth versus the number of atoms in the universe. Now I ask here, if it were in percentage terms on top of the 100%, approximately how many zeros would this passphrase add, just so I can wrap my head around it? And it says here, the short answer, about 81 zeros as a percent. And of course, this assumes that the passphrase is truly random across 95 characters, which means that it's random numbers, uppercase, lowercase, symbols, and numbers in a completely random fashion. But think about that. If your wallet in itself at the 24-word seed phrase represents 100%, adding a 40-character passphrase, which is the combination of uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, symbols, and spaces, this adds 81 zeros to that percentage. Now, the amount of extra security that this adds to your wallet is incredible. But at the same time, just like they said on the Tangem site, you have to be careful, because if you write down one symbol wrong, you could be in a world of hurt. But crypto wallets don't just let you put in the passphrase once. You have to confirm the passphrase by putting it in a second time. So once you create the passphrase and create a separate address under your 24-word seed phrase, you've already entered it correctly 2 times in order to just create it. So as long as you have written it down correctly and stored it safely, say in steel, for example, then you really have nothing to worry about, any more than you would at potentially losing your 24-word seed phrase anyway. Now, if you're responsible enough to manage your 24-word seed phrase, you're definitely going to be responsible enough to manage a 25th word in the form of a passphrase, even though it's much more complex. Now, your standard seed phrase consists of non-case-sensitive words like these 3 here: fire, forest, sample. Now, they do have to be in the right order, as they are numbered 1, 2, and 3. These will not work if they are in the wrong order. So even though they're not case sensitive, they are sensitive to the order that they're entered. Now, a passphrase would be something that resembled this: how we have symbols, uppercase, lowercase. We also have spaces. Now, this is much more complex, much more random, and is much harder to crack than just one of these alone. But you have to be careful when you write this down, because we have certain characters like O's and zeros that look similar to each other. So not only could you mistake a capital O for a lowercase o, but you could also mistake it for a zero. So one thing I do when I write down passphrases is, if it's supposed to be a 0 representing the number, I always put a strike through right through the middle of it, so I know this is a number. Now, when it's a letter for a capital O versus a lowercase, you can barely see the difference between the two of these. So something as simple as making a mistake on your passphrase by not being able to tell the difference between a 0, a capital O, or a lowercase o could cause a problem, especially if there are numerous ones throughout the passphrase. So when it comes to the lowercase, I always write a line underneath the lowercase. Now, you can use this principle with any letter that looks similar to the uppercase if you need to. So this way I can tell my zeros from my capital O's and my lowercase o's from my capital O's just by using this system. And if you're punching these into steel, it can be very complicated, because leaving gaps to represent spaces that are in your passphrase might be hard to see. Say something happened to you and someone in your family was trying to restore the wallet because they knew you had it and you left it to them in case something happened to you. A beneficiary, if you will. Is that person going to know that this is a space? So if they enter this in without putting the spaces, they will never be able to access that wallet again. So another thing that you can do is, when you are writing down your passphrase, you can simply put a red dot where the space is in between all the numbers and letters, just like I've done here, to represent that space. Then somewhere on that page, put a ledger which shows that a red dot represents a space. So this way, if you're trying to recreate and import your wallet, or someone else is attempting to do it for you, when they're looking at your passphrase, they will recognize this as a space because of the red dot. So no matter what you do, you want to make sure when you write down your passphrase, you do it in a way that it's absolutely perfect. And if you use a few of these techniques, you can easily avoid making any mistakes in the future. But if you have a cold storage wallet and you are not using a passphrase, in my opinion, that is the equivalent to basically just leaving your wallet sitting on the counter. Yes, it's protected, but it's not near as protected as it would be if you would have added just a little bit of additional security to it, like putting it in a drawer, for example. And I personally believe that having this additional security makes it a no-brainer. Yes, there's more responsibility involved, but if these quantum computers do come out and start hacking wallets, they're going to start picking off the ones that don't have passphrases. And when it comes to the people that have intricate passphrases, it's not even going to be worth their time to try it. Now, you don't necessarily have to use a 40-character passphrase. I just picked this out as an example. And obviously, if you use, say, an 8 or a 10-character passphrase, it's not going to have near the security that 40 would. But at the same time, you don't necessarily need 40. And most wallets, like the Ledger and the Tangems, will allow you to have 100 characters. I do believe the Trezors allow you to have 50. But one suggestion that I would make is to not go over 49 characters. Because if you had a 100-character passphrase and let's say Ledger went out of business, you're going to need a wallet that's capable of importing a 100-character passphrase, which basically rules out the vast majority of wallets on the market. But at the same time, there are a lot of wallets on the market that can import at least a 50-character passphrase. So by keeping it at 49 or less, you're leaving yourself open for much more possibilities in the event that you have to leave whatever wallet you're holding and import your wallet to another device. So that's just another thing to think about. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've learned something. Use a passphrase. So thank you so much for all of your support. I really appreciate it. Good luck and have a great day.